Revelation opens with a nightmare. Multi-headed beasts rising from the ocean, four horsemen bringing famine and war, and locusts descending on the earth. For centuries, these images have felt like a terrifying supernatural forecast. But to the people who received this scroll, the monsters were much more grounded in reality. The author, a church leader named John, was trapped on the island of Patmos, a barren, rocky prison in the Aegean Sea for political prisoners. John was watching his communities on the mainland struggle under the weight of the Roman Empire, where claiming that anyone other than the emperor was Lord could lead to immediate execution. Writing a letter that predicted the downfall of Rome was a death sentence. To get his message past the Roman guards inspecting the mail, John hid his message in plain sight. He substituted political figures for cosmic monsters and historical events for celestial battles, creating a narrative that was transparent to his followers but indecipherable to the authorities. John addressed this scroll to 7 specific assemblies in the Roman province of Asia Minor, located in what is now modern-day Turkey. This map shows how these cities were connected along a circular Roman trade route. By addressing these 7 specific hubs, John ensured his message would travel along the empire's own communication lines, reaching the entire province. These were wealthy, influential cities. In Ephesus, the towering marble facades and massive public theaters served as constant reminders of Rome's overwhelming scale and permanence. In Pergamum, the pressure was even more direct. As the regional capital, it was a center for pagan worship, where citizens were often expected to prove their loyalty by offering sacrifices to the Roman emperor. John's message reached these believers precisely when the social cost of their faith was becoming unbearable, offering them a different way to view the empire surrounding them. The vision identifies 2 primary antagonists, a dragon, representing the source of evil, and a beast from the sea, representing an unstoppable political power that demands total worship. To identify the specific power he's describing, John tells his readers that the number of this beast is 666, and that it requires a specific calculation to understand. In gematria, every letter holds a numerical value. If you spell the Greek title for Emperor Nero, Neron Caesar, in Hebrew, the sum is 666. Some manuscripts list 616, derived from Nero's Latin spelling. This linguistic shift confirmed the audience knew who the monster was. Using this calculation, John tagged the Roman emperor as a literal monster. He was telling his readers that while Rome claimed to be divine and eternal, it was actually a temporary, failing power. The hero who faces this beast is not a traditional warrior. He is portrayed as a lamb that had been sacrificed. This lamb is described with 7 horns and 7 eyes, symbols of complete power and complete knowledge, a direct contrast to the flawed, temporary power of the Roman beast. The lamb initiates a series of judgments. 7 seals are opened, 7 trumpets sound, and 7 bowls of wrath are poured out onto the earth. This escalating sequence shows the lamb systematically stripping away Rome's military, economic, and political control, revealing that the Roman peace was built on a foundation that could not withstand divine justice. The vision concludes with the total destruction of the corrupt system John calls Babylon, followed by the descent of a new Jerusalem, a city where suffering and death no longer exist. This resolution is clear, but readers have long disagreed on whether this victory is a historical record of the past or a map for the future. These different views are generally grouped into 4 tracks. Preterists believe these events were fulfilled in the 1st century, while historicists see them as a map of the entire history of the Church. Both of these views ground the book in the flow of human time, seeing the fall of Rome or the rise of later empires as the realization of John's imagery. Futurists believe the majority of the book describes events that have not yet occurred. Idealists argue the book isn't about specific dates at all, but is a timeless description of the ongoing conflict between good and evil. While these lenses change how we calculate the timeline, they don't change the core narrative of the book, the insistence that earthly empires are not the final word on human history. Regardless of which timeline a reader chooses, the conclusion of the story remains identical across all 4 views. John did not write this to provide a timeline for fear or a puzzle for predicting the end of the world. He wrote it as a lifeline for those 7 specific churches facing the very real threat of Roman execution. The book's central claim is that every system of oppression has a definitive expiration date. It promises that the suffering of those 7 churches, and all who have faced similar power since, will eventually be resolved by a power that does not rely on violence. In its final lines, Revelation shifts from the chaotic imagery of beasts and fire to a final vision of restoration. For a community living under the shadow of Nero and Rome, it was the ultimate assurance that despite the present darkness, their story would end in the light.